Welcome, everybody. We are very lucky to be today with Stephanie. Thank you, Stephanie, to have proposed to me to do this webinar only for Israeli companies. So it's very important for us to focus on what is useful for Israeli companies. So the webinar will be shared in two parts. First of all, I will present the business strategies that, from my experience, are useful in France. And then Stephanie will present the legal part. You will receive at the end of the week or next week the replay, the full replay of this webinar. All those who registered will receive the replay. And for those who want to receive our slides, please feel free to ask Stephanie for her slides, and she will decide which she will share with you. And if you ask me my slides, I will be happy to share them with you. So I now begin my presentation, knowing that our objective is to finish at 1 p.m. so that for everybody it's clear that we share 1 hour all together, and we hope, Stephanie and myself, that it will be as useful as possible for you. Okay, so I will begin with the business part of this seminar, and in first presenting myself in a few words, then speak about economy and culture, which are key to understand where we go and how we can make business out of Israel, okay, especially here in France. Then I will share with you some best practices I've experienced in my business life of more than 30 years. Then what is my added value to Israeli companies, and then what's next, and all that in 12 more minutes for now. Okay, so my mission is to help business executives who want to surpass themselves. If you don't want to surpass yourself, please feel free to speak to other people. Then we show here that we work hard, Stephanie and myself. Here was in January 2023, a meeting with high-level companies in France, MEDEF, for those who know. This is the association of very large companies in France. I'm used to participate in their summer university every year. It's at the end of August near Paris, and it's an incredible opportunity to network, to connect with high-level decision makers in large companies in France. Okay, and you see us here near the Tel Aviv beach. Here it was at the Perez Center for Innovation, and of course Stephanie was present, myself, and here is a key guy working in Orange in France, working to help Orange to identify startups which may work with Orange. He's a very good friend of mine, and of course a connection that I can give to you whenever it is useful to you. Okay, so I'm French and Israeli. In '76, I came for 2 years in Israel, and I was a soldier in Israel. I came back to France. I am very lucky. I suppose that many of you know him. My brother, Yossi, who lives in Israel for 30 years, and we do many things together which are linked between France and Israel. We have other activities separately. I now live for 2 years now, 50-50 in Paris and Jerusalem. I'm today in Jerusalem until the Pesach festival. Then my specialty is to be a business strategy expert, and I speak in many conferences. I did conferences for many big companies in France, like I have a list afterwards. And I'm a business coach also. Expert of the French tech ecosystem. It's, of course, complementary to the Startup Nation ecosystem where my brother is an expert. Okay, so we work together. And for your information, French tech ecosystem with startups in France, investors in France, VCs, business angels, large enterprises, and institutions. For those who know a little bit of France, there's a big institution which name is BPI France, which puts between 2 and 3 billion euros per year for French companies for innovation. And this is important to know that France has also done many efforts to help technology companies to become startups, scale-ups, and to be leaders in their niche in the world. Okay, and it's complementary from my point of view from what can be done and is done in Israel. So my best background is in enterprise software, to be clear with you, of course. I used to be a sales rep in a subsidiary of Philips, and perhaps you know, probably all of you know of Oracle. I was lucky to be one of the first salespeople in Oracle in France. In 86, and I sold to banks and insurance companies, Oracle. Then I became director of sales of another American company, and I was quite lucky to be in Oracle and in Progress when they entered the NASDAQ. Then I was during 1 year in Israel in charge of corporate marketing for those who know Magic Software. It was already in the NASDAQ, an Israeli company. Then I came back to France and I was in charge of a $15 million company for Southern Europe, a company based in California. And then I used to be also the CEO of a French startup. Okay, our revenue was about $4 million, and I raised with French VCs $2 million, and then I organized the exit. I sold the company to another French company at that time. Okay, to be clear on my background. I'm very involved in the innovation ecosystem and clubs in France. Many times I'm the MC, master of ceremony of big events. For example, with IE Club in June, in the second part of June, I will be again for the 10th time the MC of an event with 200 people in the room, and 50 French startups will present their pitch to VCs in France and large companies. Okay, this is very interesting to know that. And by the way, for those who are very serious about entering the French marketplace, I advise to you to join at least this club, IE Club. We can exchange further to this opportunity. Then I'm board member of my school's alumni club, and very involved also on an HR business club. Okay, and also a very good high-level group of experts in the public services for those who want to serve the government organizations. And of course, all that, because I'm very involved there in France, is an opportunity for me to introduce you to key people and to the right people who interest you. Okay, so this is when I was the MC of events with IE Club and HEC. Paris. Then a few data I want to share with you on the economy. Israel is $500 million of gross domestic market. It's important to understand what are the numbers for the targeted territories that you will decide to target. If you want to target France, you must know that it's a $3.5 billion of gross domestic product. Okay, Germany, you have the numbers here, USA here, and of course China, and it's in your responsibility to decide, and we can help you on that. Of course, based on my experience, it's much more in France and Europe, all over Europe, which I know very well from a business perspective. And of course, it's your responsibility to decide to go to France, to USA, and in the order you decide. Of course, it's a lot more costly to go to the USA than to France for many issues we can discuss afterwards in more details. But of course, every time you want to do business out of Israel, you must invest. It's important to invest and to have the return on investment that you deserve based on the quality of what you will do. And of course, Stephanie and myself, we're here to help you to have the best quality of your actions in these environments. Of course, on the business level, it's important to understand that for France, you must have marketing documents in French, business networks as discussed. Very important to understand that it's not a very reactive, not a very, France is not a market where we sell easily new stuff, okay? When it's completely new, when it's disruptive, it takes time in French culture to understand the value for them. Okay, then also it's important to understand that it's a long sales cycle. I'm very used and experienced in managing the sales cycles, of course, and I can help you a lot at the level of the negotiation, on the culture level and on the negotiation skills. Okay, to give you some names of companies I'm very used to work with for many years for them. For example, Total, which name is now Total Energies. I work with them for 30 years, okay, selling to them either software, or I bring them to Israel also. I did it last year for e-commerce. We'll be able to discuss about that. For your information also, I have customers in cities. Okay, again, opportunities here to have the right connection at the right time for launching some initiatives and to do business, of course. Good. It's important then to have for you all what is useful to present your company and to do the best business you deserve in France and Europe. B2B, it's very important to adapt, and I can help you on that. Your persona to France, French speaking, of course, and to target high in the hierarchy in France. We know that Israelis are not afraid of doing that. So it's important to understand that high level in hierarchy opens the right doors. And it's a must also to be very active in LinkedIn. By the way, I'm a LinkedIn guru, and I help a lot in this way, because it's incredible to have direct access with the people we want to work for. Okay, then it's important to understand that for B2C, the budget in advertising should be big, communication in France, etc., and very French oriented communication here. Okay, then sales are possible, more and more possible from Israel, and it's important to organize yourself. I sincerely believe that today success fees only model don't work at all. The people need money to live and to be motivated to work. Then retainer and success fees are very important to have in mind. And hiring, of course, I can help you hiring people. And for sure, you must have your right management system. Then also, you must have a real budget to be present, to be clear in the marketplace in France for your business strategy. And there, of course, with Bercé at the legal level. Then I become your business partner for France. Of course, we must decide on how I am paid for that. And I have a few models to present to you then one-to-one for those who are interested. Then also I can have equity. I have many equities of French and Israeli companies I worked for in the past, and it does motivate me, okay? Then I help you to decide the budget you will put there and your strategy, planification, etc. LinkedIn social selling, from my point of view, is a must-have for you to access the right people, then recruit people and negotiate. My added value also is to introduce you to high-level people who can help you to make it happen. For example, I have a partnership with Advisor, which have an incredible lead generation solution, okay? And they have Monday.com already as a very good customer for years, okay? And we can exchange on that. And of course, Bercé for the legal things. So what's next? First of all, for those who are interested to follow up and to make it happen, then we can discuss, you and I, together via Zoom also directly to speak of details, your strategy for the moment, and then see how we can make it together. For your information, I do organize networking forums online, and you are invited to participate in English. I do that in French and in English on the 20th of April. And then we do organize, and last year we had more than 30 startups coming with us to Vivatech in Paris. For your information, it's the biggest European innovation event every year in Paris. Then feel free to join us for that. And then for those who are interested, those who are ambitious, I can become your business partner for France and more. Okay, this is the end of my presentation. I propose now to Stephanie to go on for her presentation, and then we will answer your questions.
Thank you, André. Thank you very much. So a few words in Hebrew for the one who are, and I see almost everyone speaking Hebrew. So שלום לכולם, תודה שהצטרפתם, תודה לאלה שאני כן מכירה וכל אלה שאני עדיין לא מכירה, אתם מוזמנים לבוא, אנחנו בשרונה, בתל אביב. I will just introduce myself very briefly. So my name is Stephanie. For those who don't know me, I work for a French law firm, which is called Bercé, as you may see on my slide. Bercé is a French law firm. We do only French law. Our headquarters are located in Paris, and we have one physical office outside of France, which is Israel, and I'm here alone in Israel. And we are a full service law firm, and we work for SMEs, startups, of course, but SMEs, scale-up companies, large companies in France, so French companies, but let's say 60% of our portfolio is foreign companies. So from the EU, from the US, Japan, and since I'm here with Israeli companies, and I've been here for almost 14 years now. What I would like to do today is to provide you with some tips on legal standpoint, of course. My presentation, I will scroll it down. It's super packed, but you can read it, and I will just pick up some of the topic I believe are the most common when I accompany an Israeli company in France. And considering the audience, so here you can see people with the name André Dan, so you are all connecting through André Dan, but you have many other people in the pure webinar mode that are also that you cannot see. So depending on considering the audience, I will adapt. So let's start. So André talked to you about doing business in France. So actually, some of our clients just don't have someone on the ground, no employee on their own, and no subsidiary. What they do is that they have a service provider, or they hire someone through a PEO company, okay, and they just sell. Sometimes it's online sale also, okay. So you have the B2C, the B2B, and the B2G also. So B2C, as you know, it's highly regulated. In France, as any EU country, you have the European regulation and each country regulation. So in France, we have our own regulation. Regarding B2C, what you have to know is that if you have an online website, you have to, as far as you target French consumer, so how do we know you target French consumer? It's a question of clues. So if you have a page in French in your website, so we know that you target French consumer, and then for this French consumer, you need to detail your product in French. You need a double click payment consent. So they have to click once and then to click again. And afterwards, they have a possibility to withdraw their consent within 14 days. So that's the kind of thing you have to know when you come to a new market. I'm pretty sure you already know for those who are doing B2C, but if you have any other question, they have many provision like that. I can obviously expand on that. If you are doing B2B, the main issue that we have is liability. I want my liability to be capped. I cannot cap my liability for consumers. We know that, but B2B we can, and you always have your own cap in your agreement, or you try to put it in your agreement, and that's a question of negotiation. What you need to know is that in France, if your clients, usually it's more suppliers on the Israeli side, they supply something. It could be a MaaS, a SaaS, whatever cloud-based service you can provide, or on-site service, but whatever, it's usually suppliers. It could be client, but if you are a supplier, you will obviously need to limit your liability. So if your client is not a professional in your own sector, let's say you sell cybersecurity and they have no clue about cybersecurity, they have no department dedicated to that, nothing. Then, according to case law, French case law, they are deemed to be consumer. So they have the protection of consumer in respect to cap, and there should not be any cap. So, Tachles, you just put your cap because this is a psychological effect, but we know that it might not work. And if it does not work, what happened? And according to French law, you have to indemnify in case of loss, of course, you have to indemnify only the direct loss. It's important to understand that direct loss, unless provided otherwise in the agreement, direct loss does not include harm to reputation and loss of turnover or profit. So at least you have the basic protection, okay? I told you, if you want to have a service provider located in France, so André, you are in between France and Israel, but sometimes they just have someone who is a service provider in France.
Yes.
Exactly. So what I ask you is just show the agreement to a French lawyer before you execute it. Why? Because as French lawyer, what we want to make sure is that this relationship will not be requalified into one of the protected statutes. One of the protected statutes is employee. If you hire someone who has an exclusivity towards you, who has large portion of his remuneration through a monthly fixed remuneration, and you have a close monitoring of what he does, it's an employee. Okay, so in the end of the relationship, if it doesn't go well, it will come to you and say, you know what, I am your employee. So he goes to the French court and he says, I want a requalification. How far they will go to enforce it in Israel, that's another question. And that's a question of risk, okay? But if you can just avoid it ahead, that's the best. Focus on employment law. So you can have your own employee in France. So you can have your subsidiary that will employ people, but you can also employ people from Israel. The agreement will be either governed by Israeli law, but with some clauses, provision that has to be governed by French law because it's mandatory, like working time. Okay, you can either have it governed by French law, which in our opinion is the best thing. Why? Because first, it's more cost effective for you in terms of legal fees. And second, because you can read your template, you have one or two templates, and you know what the law is, what the law says. So at least you have a minimum knowledge of what is going on with the employees in France, because we detail everything in the agreement. The first thing that you have to do when you want to sign an employment agreement is to determine with your French lawyer what will be the working time, the work package, how it works. You all hear about 35 hours a week, which actually people in France work between 39 to 40 hours. I'm not talking about top executives. They are not bound by the working time, not the 35. And then it's a question of overtime. So it's overtime package like you have in Israel, okay? It's a package in hours. It could be a package in days if you are talking about C-level, and there is no working time, I told you, for executives, okay? So that's the first thing. And then you also have to make sure that the person that will receive, let's say, compensation, variable compensation, according to targets, you have to make sure that the targets are understandable, reachable, reasonable. And that's also something we have to do each year or each quarter with our client to make sure that their commission plan or whatever name they put is consistent with French practice and French law, okay? The risk is what? I know that foreign companies fear about the dismissing people. We cannot dismiss in France. That's not true. We can dismiss. What is true is that you need a legal ground. It could be personal ground, like not reaching targets, or it could be economical ground. Okay, you have another route that Mr. Macron put in place. So now it's President Macron, but at the time it was Mr. Macron. It's mutual consent termination. You go to the employee, or the employee come to the employer, say, okay, it's not going well, we want to stop. I want, as an employee, to benefit, to have the unemployment benefit. I want the minimum provided by law, like in dismissal indemnities that are less than in Israel. Actually, it's 1/3. It ranges from 1/3 to 1/4 to 1/3 month per year of seniority. So it's much less than in Israel. And that's it. I want to be good friends and to stop. So that's a thing that we do a lot in France. Actually, the Israeli company or the foreign company wants to initiate the termination, and they provide a little bit more than the minimum, legal minimum. but it's a fast route, relatively fast route compared to other routes. It's 45 days, and during these 45 days, the employee doesn't not have to work necessarily, but he will be paid for this time, but he will not necessarily have to work. So it's something that is very easy to use. Then if you come back to a regular dismissal, even if you don't have enough grounds because your target was not reachable or understandable because it was written in a language that the guy couldn't understand, the employee couldn't understand, and according to law, you cannot dismiss, you will dismiss, but at least you have visibility on how much it will cost you. Because Mr. Macron, again, did another reform, which was to put a scale. So it ranged between 1 month, 1.5 months, up to 1 year and a half for someone with like 20 years of seniority. And you know, this is the package that I would have to pay on top of my minimum legal indemnities. But one thing, the scale will not include overtime package that you will not have paid. You have an overtime package, we said, so you have a credit. If you use more than that, you have to pay for that. And the problem with the Israeli companies is that they work from Sunday to Thursday, while the employee will work from Monday to Friday. So during the weekend, what is the weekend for a French guy? You will probably send him emails and have calls and maybe ask him to travel and so on and so on. And all this you take from your credit of overtime. If you don't pay for that, it will be paid on top of all the rest. Okay, so just pay attention to that. We can help you how to manage that. There are ways to manage that. In anything regarding employment law, you have to manage, to monitor with your payroll service provider or your French lawyer. And if you do that, it will be just perfect. Okay, I want to move on to the next slide. So incorporating a company, this is something very easy. The only issue today is to open a bank account. It's worldwide, I think. It's not only in France, but it takes time. It takes sometimes weeks or months, okay, just for you to know. You can also have a presence in France because you will open a branch or because we said opening a subsidiary, but also because you will purchase a company. One point in that respect, for those who are lawyers here, there is no hire or fire mechanism in France. So if your client say, okay, I want to purchase a company, you have to tell him, wait, you cannot choose the employees that you want to take or not. Okay, they have to take everyone. Okay, I had an issue with one of our clients who say, okay, I did a business plan and I want to lay off 1/3 of the workforce, and it has to redo the business plan. Tax, so 25%, it used to be 33%, so it was a huge decrease. Again, Mr. Macron, thank you. But it's 15% for small SMEs, and it's even 10% for profit generated by IP transaction, like royalties or sale of IP, okay? In order to benefit from this 10%, you have to submit a file to the tax authorities. Just to let you know, we have built an offer with a technical company that help determine what IP can be included and what is not. And we are building that in order to provide our client with, try to provide them with this 10% reduced corporate tax. VAT, it's 20%. When you sell your service to a French company, but you are not in France, okay? No permanent establishment, no subsidiary, nothing. You don't have to add VAT on that, but your client, if he is subject to VAT in France, he will have to pay on top of your invoice, but it's neutral for him because he will deduct from the VAT that he has collected. So neutral for him, but we call that auto liquidation. That's a question that may arise if he's not subject to VAT because it's a government, for example, governmental agency, then you will have to add VAT. okay, and to have a tax representative in France. I can elaborate on that. It's more technical, but just for you to know, it's important. And my last point, I will finish with that, R&D. So you have many financing support, which could be grants, which could be 0% loan that are not refundable for 3 years and then refundable with the 0 interest rate. But one of this incentive is also a tax credit. And among the tax credit, you have the R&D tax credit, which is doing very well for some of our clients also that I've brought to France because it was so natural. When you have the possibility as an Israeli company, you have your own R&D in Israel. Okay, you don't change anything, but you can have a collaboration with a large group that André might introduce to you, or with a large group, or with a research institute, okay, like CNRS or CEA, whatever. You take all the R&D cost, okay, so it includes the fees that you will pay to the research institute for doing the IP on your behalf. It will include the PhD wages. It will include everything, equipment and so on. It's a computation. You take all of this and you have 30% back from the government. Sometimes it's also 50%, depending on the path. So when you know that French employees are high educated, very profitable, they are less expensive than Israeli ones. It was a shock for me when I discovered that. And on top of that, you have 30% back from the French government. It's really, it's a thing that I believe should be taken into account. And of course, ask us if you have any questions. I'm done. André, I did it in 16 minutes. That was my best.
Well done, well done.
I will stop my sharing.
Yes, please, please. Okay. So now the options for you are: first, welcome to ask questions in writing, please. Easier for us to manage that. And of course, you can ask Stephanie her slides, the slides she will decide to share, and a meeting, especially with her, for discussing further the legal issues. And feel free to do that also with me. I will share all my slides here, the ones I've presented today. And of course, I am open to have a one-to-one meeting with each of you at the right time, with the right people, ready to go and do a real good business in France. So please feel free to ask questions. Stephanie, do you see if we have already some questions?
For the time being. Apparently it was all clear.
Okay, think of that. And
okay, maybe a few seconds if someone wants to draft something.
Sure.
Okay, maybe André, you would like to add something about what you said.
Yes.
Yes, we have maybe one question. Let's see.
With pleasure. When I heard you, I was very happy and very satisfied that we did that all together, Stephanie, you and I. So, because when I heard you, Stephanie, I felt that business people are more artists, okay? They are creative. They want to find the right people to buy and to close the deals and to be paid and to do additional deals. This is the nature of business people. And what you added is very clever from my point of view, because based on the understanding on what's happening in France, in the dynamics of helping technology, French technology, and also other companies willing to develop technology also in France with French engineers, etc., it brings a real added value that I do not have in mind upfront when I think of doing business in France. Thank you for that, Stephanie. Do you see questions.
Definitely. And Eliane is more a comment than a question. And Eliane, you are right. You mentioned that it's important to have a strategy in terms of trademarks or IP. When you come to a new market, just be prepared with your Israeli lawyers for this part, and other lawyers, for example, EU lawyers, if you're targeting EU, just to make sure that you are protected in the country that you are targeting. Okay, so
Yes.
that's definitely right. It's a question of strategy. Like you have business strategy, you must have an IP strategy also. So here, Eliane is talking about the trademarks, definitely. But it could be other IP involved in this. So we used to work with Israeli law firms. So here we have some of our friends I see here, and definitely that's the kind of thing we can think together with your own counsel to work together to find something which makes sense for you to be comfortable to start working in another country with partners.
Sure.
Thank you, Eliane.
Okay. Feel free to ask.
What about region in France versus all of France? Are there areas better for R&D climate? Very good question. André, do you want to take this one, or do you want me to start?
I don't see it.
Okay, so it's in the discussion box. You can find it, not the Q&A. What about regions in France versus all of France? Are there areas better for R&D climate?
Okay, very good question. I know that in Marseille or in Nice, okay, some Israeli companies come and create a real R&D team. And in this environment, and I know the key people for that, for those who are interested to look at this opportunity to establish even European headquarters in these towns in general, it's Marseille or Nice because of the Mediterranean Sea also, and very direct to Israel and very open to doing something with Israel. For those who want to create an R&D team, I may, as a first level, propose Marseille or Nice. And I have customers, of course, in France. I help a lot of French startups to become international. And they regularly tell me that they fidelize, they have more loyal employees out of Paris than in Paris. Of course, the dream is to go to Paris and to establish that, but in terms of efficiency, it's better to do that out of Paris for R&D. Of course, for business, let's say, to be simple as a first level, that for the B2B business, 80% of the decision makers for France are based in Paris. So to summarize, R&D, I advise to go out of Paris and, for example, Marseille or Nice, okay? And for business, it's a must to be established in Paris for the B2B companies.
I would add also, in our experience, you have many clusters in France where you have the laboratories, the research institute, you have the big companies, the large companies, and the startups. Okay, so you have many of that, and it depends on the sectors.
Exactly.
Yeah, it depends on the sectors. So if, like André said, he knows one of the large companies, it's good to go where you have at least a partner that you can work with. That's the first thing, but also to take into consideration the knowledge of this region in your own business. So this is something we can all, André and I, help you with to determine which region is the best. Also, you have to know, because I talked about financing, you have the national-wide financing, and you have the regional one. So we have 13 regions in France, and they all compete with each other. So I can also provide some grants and very, very interesting ones. Okay, so we also take this into consideration when we assist our clients. And for example, I know that Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region is very friendly with Israel. They have some of my clients are there actually in the nano technology.
Sur comment développer le business high-tech entre Israël et la France, entre la France et Israël.
Okay, so just if we can have the question in written, I'm sorry. It's just I will finish with that, and then we will of course address your question with pleasure. So
yes,
you have to take into consideration what I say. So what the region can offer, in which sector she is good. Of course, if you know through André, a client, just go there. That's the way we structure. It's a regional thinking. It's not only Paris, but Paris is very strong, of course. I hope we answer your question. Sorry.
Sure. Please feel free to write your question, even in French. It's not a problem. In French or in English, feel free.
Or in Hebrew, if you prefer. 3 languages are fine.
Not Russian. Okay.
Iris wants to ask a question. Iris, maybe you can just write it down.
Okay. Perhaps we can have 1 or 2 more questions with pleasure. Feel free again to ask a direct and personal meeting with Stephanie or myself separately based on your concrete objectives for short to mid-term. We are here to help and to work for you, potentially, if we agree on the terms of also on that. I want, as a kind of summary or conclusion from my point of view, as a French citizen first, French, okay, I did almost all my career in France, and it's a beautiful country and a good country to do good business also. Frankly, as a conclusion, the Israelis have a very good image at the technology level. Technology, business, the Israeli companies are very well appreciated, very well respected, tried not to speak about politics. Okay, of course, and religion, of course. By the way, that's true also when you do business in France with French companies. Okay, so no politics, no religion, and go to do your best business in France and elsewhere in the world. This was my conclusion. Stephanie, what's your conclusion for today?
Just what I said on the legal standpoint, legal wise, what I say is that just ask question before you go there, just to understand what are the do's and don't do. It will avoid a lot of problem, because we have many, we hear many stories of people that say, no way, we don't want France. It's just because they were not prepared. So they find themselves paying huge amounts to an employee, but we could avoid that. It's mainly relating to employees, actually. Another point that we see in negotiation of contract, this is not the business culture of French companies to renegotiate after the execution of the agreement, which could happen with an Israeli company. The CEO has changed. He wants to prove that he's the best and the best than the previous one. And then he wants to renegotiate. I had bad stories with that. The French team accepted, but in the end, there were no more business. So this is not the kind of thing I would suggest to do.
Interesting. Okay. Thank you, Stephanie.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you all. If you have, I see that 1 or 2 of you wanted to ask questions, but I don't see, or maybe there is another one here. I don't
You
see.
will receive
Yes,
in a
Iris,
few
sorry,
days.
it was my, thank you very much, it was very, thank you, Iris, thank you very much. And
Okay.
we'll
If Iris
discuss.
is happy, I am happy. Okay, you will receive in a few days from now the replay of all our webinar altogether. Then you will be able to ask Stephanie or myself to have a one-to-one meeting to go on your personal and professional strategic objectives. We are here to help.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.